So I will be indeed speaking about one dividing into two. So this one divides into two, and two doesn't merge into one. This was the old Maoist slogan from the 60s. As Aaron already pointed out, and despite its air of universal truth, it has become dated. And I realize the danger of appearing dated myself by taking this slogan as the guideline. For nowadays, one can stand in front of a class full of students, none of whom have ever heard about this slogan and have no inkling as to its bearing and its author. It's like speaking Chinese. The slogan combines an ontological statement, a mathematical theorem, and a political battle cry, all in one. So why does one split into two, necessarily both in mathematics, in ontology, and in politics? And why, once we arrive at two, at a foundational split, one can never get back to the supposed unity of one? So I will try to speak about something minimal, something extremely simple, and at the same time enigmatic, namely, how to get from one to two. It implies the ways to conceive the difference, and more precisely, how to conceive the difference between two kinds of difference. The first kind of difference can be seen as the difference of numerical count. What accounts for counting, for getting from one to two? What pushes the count in its forward thrust? For if we have successfully managed this heroic feat of accomplishing the first step of addition, assuming that 1 + 1 makes 2, then there seems to be no stopping this process. We can reproduce this step again and again, and thus count to infinity. To be sure, what seems to be a simple operation, the most elementary of all, the one acquired with the first lesson in mathematics, is itself full of pitfalls and hidden traps. And one needs only to mention the name of Frege, the set theory, the discussion about the suture, Badiou's intricate theory of numbers to remind us of the complexity of operations involved. But I will not follow this path. I will just simply point out that in this way, one hasn't really arrived at two, first because the two which has been thus produced is still the hostage of one, its extrapolation and extension, its replication, one splitting itself and reproducing itself. And second, one hasn't arrived at two, but at more than two. The two of many, the whole host of numbers, since the process that one has instigated cannot stop at two. It is endowed with the forward push to multiply itself so that two is a mere provisional stopover, a halt from which we must hurry on. There is, however, the other side of this question, of the question of the two, which is precisely the side of the other. For what stands in opposition to one is, on the one hand, the numerical two, the second one being of the same nature and cut of the same stuff as the first one. On the other hand, there looms the other with a capital letter, turning it into the big other, underscoring and highlighting its emphatic nature and the drama implied in it. The question of the other brings forth not merely the numerical two, the second one following the first one, but a question of something of a different order, something which is not a mere extension of the first one, but something which would really present a two, count for two, the two heterogeneous to one and recalcitrant to the progression of ones into infinity. For however much we count, however many ones we add to the first one, we cannot count to the two of the other. The progression of counting extends the initial one into a homogeneous and uniform process, while the other presents a dimension which would be precisely other in relation to this uniformity. In a nutshell, the otherness of the other, if it can be conceived, is a dimension that cannot be accounted for in terms of one. If the other exists, then we have some hope of escaping from the circle or the band of one. It would present a two that would really make a difference, not merely a difference between a one and another one, that is ultimately between the one and itself, the count based on the internal splitting of one. It will make another difference, beyond the delightful oxymoronic phrase, same difference. One can immediately appreciate the high philosophical stakes in the matter. A large part of modern philosophy, if not all of it, has placed itself under the banner of the other, in one way or another, whatever particular names it might have used to designate it. And if it has thus espoused the slogan of the other, it has done so in order to establish a dimension which would be able to break the spell of one.